Our speaker gave me a little bit less technological. He gave me his card, and I shall read what it says on the back of the card. It says, connecting IPs, and then a little asterisk. Interesting people, Iberian Peninsula. Intellectual property, innovation pros, international partners, internet pioneers, and in person. And we are very lucky to have here in person with us today a man known as the internet biographer, who I happen to know at the age of 12 had his first computer with an entire memory capacity of 3 kilobytes. I'm sure I read that right. Anyway, to talk to us in a few moments about the Internet of Things that matter, Dr. Andreu Vea. But to present him, to say a few more words about him, I'm going to invite Senor Pont, who will come up to the stage and introduce you to Dr. Andreu Vea. Thank you very much. I'll take this.
Hello. In Chennai, India last year, you remember that a gentleman from Google was presenting a speech, and it was so interesting that we say that considering the importance of Internet, that in the Sevilla Congress, to have the opportunity to have also an expert in this item, which is so important in the life and so important also in the net business, which is Internet. For this reason, we ask Dr. Andreu Vea to attend and present his thoughts in our Congress. And I can tell you that Dr. Vea is an expert, has contacted a tremendous quantity of people involved in Internet. He is called also the biographer of Internet, and his studies in Stanford, and he has a tremendous prestige in this line. Shall have the presentation of Andreu, the Internet father, one of the founders of Internet, which, by the way, we have invited him to attend next Congress in Florida next year, and Binton Cerf shall introduce the speaker of today. She will introduce his friend, and then let's hear to him.
Hola, my name is Vint Cerf. I'm Google's chief internet evangelist, and I'm one of the co-inventors of the internet. And I want to talk to you about an absolutely amazing book that a friend of mine, Andreu Vea, has spent nearly 20 years working on. He's done 320 interviews. He's got 800 people that he talks about who were the creators of the internet all around the world. This book is a compendium of the story of the internet's creation. And it's created in the process of friendship for me with people all around the world, but particularly friends in Barcelona and in Madrid, where I've discovered that the friendliest people in the world live. So this book is something that you will treasure if you get your hands on it, because it's a resource with stories that are personal in nature, but that tell the story of the internet over a long period of its development. So I can recommend it to you, and I certainly recommend knowing Andreu Vea, who knows everybody in the world because of all the interviews that he's done. So if you need to get in touch with someone, he's the guy you need to talk to.
Dr. Andreu, it's your time.
Thank you. I appreciate. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Sevilla. Today, I would like to share a few thoughts. First of all, maybe you haven't thought about, but as humans, we have 700,000 hours of duration. Well, there is always one grandma that lasts more, but regularly, if you keep in touch and get all the sleeping hours, we have only less than 500,000. So if we are here, let's say 1,000 people for 40 minutes, it's almost 1,000 hours that I'm going to take from you. So I need to go quick. Another thought is that I'm going to take you a picture every 30 seconds. So if you have any complaint, talk to me. In my jacket and my suit, I have a camera somewhere that 24 hours take pictures and then makes a time lapse of all my life. So yes, you can copy, you can use your camera, and I do encourage you to take pictures. I hope it doesn't happen like this is in California. Last time I said that, people start taking pictures. But guess what? If you listen, you normally will forget. But if you see, you will remember. That's why I'm going to try to do my speech today with images, not text, because humans are for images. Most of the pictures are mine. I am devoted to do pictures. This is at night in the Pyrenees. So we are talking about the Internet of Things, but the Internet of Things that matter to us as humans. And I will talk to it based on a life experience. Let me tell you a story. I'm not at all, you see this is almost 4 a.m. in the morning, I am not at all a consultant. I will not sell you anything, not even clouds, no. I'm just an observer of the world. Even if you think this is in Tarragona, this picture, and you think this is in the afternoon, no, it's 3 a.m. in the night with a long exposition time. As I am a Catalan from Spain, I am a strict vegetarian and a Mediterranean diet. When I say vegetarian, I mean that we like, as Spaniards, we like these processed vegetables and grass. I have a challenge today, which is changing your life. I said, what? No. Let me tell you one thing. Almost 50% of today's professions won't exist in 20 years. I'm not saying that. This MIT says. Let me ask you something. Your great-grandfather, do you remember his profession? Probably it was related, and he was a farmer, because a few years ago, 80% of the population were farmers or people related working there. And 10,000 years ago, when we, as humans, invented the agriculture, we have been for 10,000 years working on the fields. But look at this graph. In 200 years, the population devoted to the agriculture went from 90% to only a reduced less than 3%. Only in 200 years, after 10,000. And you will say, oh, we lost some jobs. Yes, we lost all jobs. All. And now this 3% is working a lot with a lot of technology to produce more than all the people who produced it 200 years ago. Does it sound familiar for you? Depending on your age. But probably you heard about that, and you saw it, or you use it. Then the engineers put it nicer, and now it's more comfortable. We have air conditioning in the tractor. We have things like that in only one pass we can harvest most of the field, or things that we need 5 tractors to keep up with or you have a big field, you put 20 big machines like that, and you do the work of a month. A little less from 50 years, we went from 30 million mules and horses to only 5 million tractors. This is a factor of 6. We had 30 million horses, and then since 1912 to 1960, we went to 5 million tractors. And I'm telling all you these things because life is changing, and it's changing fast. We said 10,000, then 200, now 50 years. And if you see, there is an acceleration of the progress. I had this life-changing event, that is what you see Vint Cerf, the father of the internet, invite me to California to keep my work and my research. So I was there for 9 years writing my thesis, my doctoral thesis, and then he wrote the foreword of this thesis, and I moved to Silicon Valley. Probably Silicon Valley for you is this. Sounds familiar? No, this is San Francisco. This is not Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is something like that. Okay, it's Stanford University, and then a couple of technology companies surrounding. So imagine myself there, and I went to start into what I call the who is who in the internet world. I will tell you what is this. When the organizers invite me to give you and address you these words, I was thinking, how could I sort all this speech? And I said, let's do it in an innovative way. No? So I will talk about the past, then I will go fast from the present, and I will talk a little bit about the future of the internet, of the humanity, I would say. In 1980, I used this. Probably some of you used this also, which is an acoustic modem of 300 bauds, and a backbone nowadays goes 1 billion factor faster in our lives. This is how technology advanced. In 1990s, I was very modern, and with my super cell phone, it was like 1 byte per hour. It was so slow. In 2000, my work environment was this. And I created in California what we call who is who in the internet world. And probably you heard about the origins of the internet. If you have a network, and then let's go to 1950s, 60s in the Cold War, the Soviets bombed this network. These crumbs of the network should work. Probably you heard about the origins of the internet, right? No. This is a myth. It's not at all with the reality. Okay? Probably you heard about that the internet is a pure US invention. It is the daughter of the ARPANET, was born in 1969, was built to withstand a nuclear attack, and was created by a small group of at a public US agency. Most of these things are wrong, are totally wrong, are myths. So what are we doing since 1994? We're collecting the stories of all these internet pioneers. Imagine that you now could listen directly to Thomas Alva Edison telling you how he invented the bulb, but you could listen directly. So this is what we do, collecting all these people who, for the first time in humanity, people who change our lives are still alive. So we record them. This is Paul Barron in 1964. He created the packet switching concepts. This is Duke Engelbert, 1968. He is responsible for, you have a computer monitor. This was a sonar. And then he created this, and now we have monitors in our computers. He also created the mouse. And these are unsung heroes. nobody have heard about them. This is Bob Taylor, who started the ARPANET. When you see a black thing, it's a bad signal. They pass away. But after interview them, they pass away. But it's not my fault. I mean, it's a biological thing. Just don't think. Then in 1969, Frank Herd and his group at BBN in Boston, he created the first router. A router that it looks like a fridge. This is the first router. And let's do an experiment. Could you stand up, please? Quick. Okay, ready? I need a chronometer. Perfect. Could you applaud? Could you clap? Loud. Okay. Thank you. Stand. You can sit. Thank you. It took only 4 seconds and 20 to go to a synchronized. I told you, could you clap? Could you applause? Not to applause me, just applause. I didn't direct you. You do it by yourself. But in only 4 seconds, you converge to a one clap. Normally, as more people there in an audience, you converge faster. Why? Because you listen to your neighbor and you synchronize yourself as an intelligent distributed system. This is how the internet works. You have neighbors and you synchronize to your neighbors and you create a big thing. This is how it works. It's a very easy way. If you, as more people, when you try it, as more people there is, normally you converge, or groups converge in 10, 12 seconds. You converge in only 4 seconds, which means that there is a good distributed intelligent system in this audience. So all this, his work was open since day one. They didn't patent their work. This guy changed your life. This is Ray Tomlinson, the inventor of the email. Probably you haven't heard about him. He passed away last month, and in 1971 he created the email. In 1981 he created the DNS, the domain name system. Paul Mokapetris. In 1991 he created the XDSL. John Chaffee, a professor at Stanford. In 2001, this guy created the Wikipedia, which changed most of how we learn, how we consult ideas. In 11 years, the British encyclopedia disappeared after Wikipedia. 2005, Vint Cerf got the Nobel Award. You know that engineers don't have a Award Prize, so the equivalent of Nobel is the Alan Turing Prize. And this guy at the right was the co-founder of Google. You probably heard about that company. And this woman changed your life, but you probably don't know her. No, probably not. I'm sure you don't know her. But she created, when the domain name system was created, she said, .com, .net, .org, .edu. She divided all the space of the internet. Okay? And I'm creating this big gallery and this big archive for future historians to have first-hand accounts of all these people. Because most of these people are unknown, completely unknown. This is in Washington, when I created the Internet Collective Memory Experiment. I mean experiment because I put them together for one day and they start talking about the origins and why they did that or the other. And people with their peers, they don't used to lie, because it's another way of doing history, interviewing them all together. So you can now listen to their voices because I put this QR code and I send you an MP3 to your ear directly. I'm not a journalist, I'm an engineer. So I send you directly his voice, their voices, directly through this. And here there are some of the 320 people interviewed, and the VIP people in the internet, I call them SOAP, simple, old, and poor. Okay? Why? Well, these are the unsung heroes, and these ones are the billionaires. Probably you heard about them, but if I do like that, now it sounds more familiar, probably. These are the billionaires who used the other things, the other inventions, to create their fortunes. After 23 years of field research and 5 years writing, I created this little book. It's little, but it's like 5 pounds. And well, let's leave the past behind, and let's talk a little bit about the present. The present. You probably heard about industrial revolutions. So many industrial revolutions. Well, not so many. There were this one in 18th century on the steam and water. Later on, 100 years later, in 19th century, we have the electricity, and we had an industrial revolution. Then in 1969, well, 60s, 50s, 60s, we had the transistor and the electronics and the information technologies revolution. And now we have another one, which what we call cyber-physical. If you see, we have exactly 100 years in each revolution, but now no, it's only 50 years from the next revolution. And it's what we call Industry 4.0, or the fourth revolution. And let's see the ingredients of this revolution. Probably you heard about the blockchain everywhere, robotics, autonomous cars, nanotechnology, quantum computing, 3D printing, Internet of Things, biotechnology, augmented and artificial intelligence. Sounds familiar, right? All these things will create a different world that we have seen it. And they will do it really, really quick. It's not 50 years, in 10 or less years. If you heard about blockchain, everybody talks about blockchain. Blockchain is based on open source, the tradition of open source, and distributed databases, data immutability. You cannot change anything because everybody will see it, and also based on cryptography. We are living in an exponential age. What does it mean? When I talk about disruption, I mean 10 times more. When they talk about innovation, they mean twice. So this is important. For instance, the cost per genome. If you get your body sequenced, or your DNA, well, in 2001, and you probably remember what you were doing in 2001, it cost $100 million. Right now, you can do it for a few hundreds. This is Moore's law, yeah? the white line, and it's an exponential law. But the prices went down so quick that this is incredible. Do you remember this? Sounds familiar, right? We have an age already. From 1992 to 2001, in just 3 years, only 3 years, this disappeared. We were used to do 36 to 72 slides per year, more or less, per year. I am doing 5,000 pictures per month right now. It changed a little bit. Exponential era power means that all the photos in the world, look, went down because nobody else did that. And Kodak disappeared. Why disappeared? This is the problem. And this is the first digital photo camera with you. Probably you haven't heard about it. It was like 4 kilos. It was terrible. It was only 100 per 100 pixels, like, you know, a stamp, a little stamp. 23 seconds per photo to record a photo. You see the cassette? Can you see that? The cassette here? You record it in a cassette, in a tape. And it was, of course, black and white. That was 1975. And this guy is the guilty. A worker for Kodak. He was working for Kodak. The inventor of the digital camera was working for Kodak. And since 1975 to 1995, 20 years, he was talking to the management of Kodak, say, look, no. And he was refused all the time, but he kept insisting. And as with all exponential technologies, there is a lot of disappointment for a long, long time. Look at this. This is the first daguerreotype, the first picture, and it took almost 100 years to reach consumers. 100 years. And then in 1935, film substituted plaques. And this guy is the inventor of the CCD, the digital camera. It's based on this. All your cameras on your cell phones bring his. He got the Nobel Prize 5 years later after I interviewed him. Right now, I was telling you, in just 2 minutes, we take the same number or the same amount of pictures of all the 19th century in 2 minutes. It's the same. And let's make it clear. You heard about that probably. The cameras, the digital cameras, they don't sell it anymore. Why not? Because we have this camera here, then another camera here. We have a lot of cameras everywhere. But this is what your cell phone has inside as a camera, right? But now we have this wafer-labeled camera, which is smaller, still smaller. It's the one I wear in my jacket. You cannot even see it, but I take a picture. But what happened when we disguised a computer as a typewriter? The typewriter went to the shelf. Well, what happened when we disguised a computer as a cell phone? The cell phone disappeared, and now we have a computer in our pockets. So, talking a little bit more about this exponential era, probably you haven't seen it. Focus on the red function. It doubles every time, okay? There is this long deception years that goes 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 4. But when you reach 1, which is here, when you reach 1, the graphic goes really fast. Why? Because you double, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. And all these things, look at the prices. This is an inverse. This is how it cost and how the prices fall. I inverted the graphic so you can see it more exponential. But the graphic, the prices drop. For instance, storage, hardware drives, decreases 50% in every 18 months. Imagine in your market if almonds price fall every 18 months to half, right? It would be terrible. So in electronics, this happens, storage. And also transmission also decreases to half every 9 months. That's why we have, imagine, X-rays, and you need a doctor to interpret an X-ray. But this is, it's an MRI that you don't need to be a doctor to see how the water flows. MRIs are displacing X-rays. And PET has displaced also CT scans. You can do now a full body exploration, and you can even get the metabolic activity on your body. Or you can get this thing that you don't even have to touch, and you project in 3D all these images of your tumor before you get an intervention. Or if you are, need to all these vaccines, you don't need needles anymore. Right? You just put it like this, and you can have your vaccine. This is an interesting thing that these two people, they had their daughter was diagnosed with diabetes, and they started creating something really interesting. And this is a pocket molecular sensor. It's like that. It's small like this. And it went from $40,000 to $300. Now you can scan with a pocket thing. you can have a spectrometer. I mean, with near-infrared light, you can almost know the chemical makeup of everything. Think a little bit. Just pointing this device to this cheese, it tells you it's 25% of fat. And it tells you the calories, the fat, and the sugar content. For diabetics, it's perfect, but not only for diabetics. For us, as regular humans, we can even have this to know when we have to harvest our crops, because you can know the sugar, the water content, everything. Just pointing and having this device in your pocket. It's always the way how you express things and the how. I have a friend that is an engineer and tells you that, and God said all the Maxwell equations of electromagnetic fields, and then there was light. If I tell you this, you said, what's this? It's difficult. But for instance, I have 2 kids right now, when I try to educate why we have to wash our hands before eating, I'm going to show you for the first time with this new technique. It's called biofilm, these colonies of germs that form in your hands. Trillions of germs that forms. That's why you wash your hands before eating. But if I tell you like that, you will probably remember this green and nasty thing before you eat. Can you tell me what is this? You have it in your finger, just one finger. This is a broken hair. This is your nail. Can you see your nail here? And you know these little skin things. And this is a bone with osteoporosis. And also this is, the mountains and the valleys in your finger thumb. If I tell you how, when you scratch your skin, how the red blood cells and the plaquettes create and close your thing, showing you this, or a blood vessel, or can you tell me what is this? This is nice. These are the taste buds here in your tongue. Or this roast beef here. Now you know when you go to the beach and you don't put sunblock, sunscreen, this is what happened. Let's think a little bit more. Now we are in the Mediterranean zone. Here we have a microclimate which is called Mediterranean, and there is 5 regions in the world that they have this climate, microclimate. If you think a little bit more, you will see that it overlaps with the best wine zones in the world, which are California, Mediterranean, South of America, Chile, Argentina, South Africa, and southeast of Australia. And guess what? In these 5 Mediterranean zones, we have water-stressed countries. This is the most important things are here, where people, more than 1 billion people, have severe water stress. It means that the ratio of withdrawals to supply, it's more than 80%. So there's going to be, and there is already, water scarcity in many places. That's why I have been looking at it, and there is a very interesting thing in agriculture where you can put drones directly to scan your crops, and you can do things like this. Infrared, you put agriculture, mass drones, it's precision agriculture. And what do I mean? 10 years ago, that was so expensive that you cannot even think about that. Right now it's $1,000. You just get a drone, you get a special camera, and you start a special software, and you can evaluate your crops and have patterns like this that tells you if it's a well-hydrated vineyard or there is a lack of water. and a little bit more. Sensors and precision irrigation. Sensors right now are solar, are cheap, and are wireless. You don't need to install cables in your fields. And you can go and irrigate in a drip for each vine. Each vine. It's not a row, no. Each vine. Because it's programmable. It's software, and it gets really, really easy. This is going to change how we water the plants. Let's talk a little bit about 3D printing. 3D printing can reach very complex, you see, things, and very complex forms that you cannot even think about these forms, geometric forms. About fashion, I'm not going to talk about fashion, but you can, I'm telling you that this can be done. Then everybody has their own ideas. And then, why don't we print a house? Imagine Gaudí, our most famous architect, from Reus, by the way. Imagine if we had to print a house. You just replace the ink by concrete, and that's it. And you create very weird things. You can print artificial skulls or prosthetic eyes or ears, noses. And this is important because noses, you only print one. So you have first to explore it in 3D, and then you have a modeless manufacture. Bones, the most difficult bones to reproduce. Imagine when you have a reconstruction, you can print it. Exoskeletons, you cannot, probably you cannot do this as a human, to have 3 things. And this thing, you will like it because it's in better shape than most humans. This robot is the first humanoid that can do backflips. You can bring it into the house or outside. This is really, really complicated. As an engineer, I can tell you. Look at this. Look. It's compensating, do you see? Real-time compensation. It's almost falling, but uh-oh. Don't get scared. This is the present. We have also hands printed, 3D printed for 50 euros, especially in developing countries. And the most and the best bionic, the next generation bionics, is that this guy, Hugh Herr, he had an accident climbing, and he's a professor at MIT, and he created all these new prosthetic and robotics that I recommend you to watch this TED video from the Boston Marathon bombing survivor. She again danced in public. She was a dancer, and thanks to this new prosthetic. Before Tan Lee, a friend from California, electroencephalographic systems were like $800,000. After Tan Lee, this is only 400. That's why we still don't have electroencephalographs at home. With this diadem, you can think and play. I am playing here with this avatar. I'm thinking to go left, to go right, to go up, down, zoom. Just thinking. This. Imagine if you have a problem and you are in a wheelchair and your things, you want to go left, right, straight. It's easy. It's $400. This is Mataró in Barcelona. The marketing guys put this is a pet store. You go with your pet, and why you need to select his house? Let the dog do that. And then you measure his brain, and you know when it's more excited. And it works. Or portable echographs. Why you have to put a nice screen, a nice monitor to an echograph? Make it cheaper, $300. Imagine for Haiti, or I was in the República Dominicana talking to the vice president, so why they don't introduce this, as they have a 15% child mortality in 21st century. Let's talk a little bit about the wear, what we can wear, technology we can wear. Look at these prosthetic things. Let me ask you something. Can you tell me which one is the prosthetic and which one is the real? If I do this, now it's easier. You miss it, right? And let's talk about the Internet of Things. You can put this device in your plants, because, well, my house was like a cemetery of plants, because I travel a lot, and most of the time the plants dried, okay? So now I know the sun, and tells me not enough water. This is how you water a plant, dries, and you water it up again. This is the percentage of humidity. And the best thing, it tells me, water your plant in 5 days. Let's talk about quantify itself. It's to know yourself through numbers. Look, this is I measure every half an hour all the CO2 levels and the temperature of the rooms where I am. Every half an hour, I take a sample. And then, when you sleep in a room, you see, for ppm, the CO2 level, it's increasing. And then, when you open the window, the temperature falls, and of course, the CO2 gets out, and you get more oxygen. This is a very intimate thing that I'm going to show you. This is my weight. Okay? I weigh myself twice a day. Why? Are you sick? No, I don't know yet, but I do. And this is my weight. And this is 75 kilos, for instance. And your weight, in the same day, you can go here or there. I don't need to tell you. If you drink, if you go to the toilet, and then your weight oscillates like this. So you need to have this average, the white line, this average. And if I ask you, in what week I was intervened from, I had a back pain, I have a surgery, you can tell 5 kilos in 1 week I lost. So analyzing your weight tells you many things. The same here is your sleep. Today I slept 6 hours. It's 76% of my goal, which is 8 hours. So I have 600 sensors right under my mattress that tells me, even, you see, my heart, 64 beats per minute all the time, and tells me when I sleep, I woke up with a noise, and then I keep sleeping. Or the blood pressure in 6 months of my father, who is 700 kilometers away. And you can tell that his pressure is a little up. It should be in the green band. Or for instance, I know how I am breathing. I have an implant that tells me how many times I breathe per minute. My average is 16 times. Now I am breathing in a little bit more because I'm speaking, and tells you that if you are in 21 breaths per minute, you are in a tense streak. Or if you are 12, you are calm. And then it tells you how went your day. Mostly calm, tension, focus. If you have a car, and if you have a cell phone, then you have a connected car. I would encourage you to download this software, which is called Moves, and then you can do things like this. In the last 3 years, I know exactly all the places where I were. This is my house, and then I go to drop my kids at the school, and then this is in orange, you see the car, green is walking, and blue is by bike. You can see there is a highway here, so I have to cross the highway doing a round by bike. It's very easy because your cell phone carrier knows that. Why don't you know it? You just download this app, Moves, and you can paint it, which is called Movoscope. This is another app. You can paint it nicely in a map. Nutrigenomics. What's that? Nutrigenomics is applying genetics to your body. With only 200 euros, you can get this analyzed, and they tell you, for instance, if the vitamin, A vitamin, in general, you need whatever you need. In my case, I need double of that. So I keep eating more, because every person is a world. Why don't you apply your genetics to the vitamins? Or these chips, especially in Mexico, there is the kidnapping people. You can be recovered with implanting this, that is like a rice grain. Or if you are not so in implanting things, why don't you put this digital tattoo from Motorola, has everything. And for instance, if you are in a hospital and they tell you at 5 a.m., they wake you up, just to sample your temperature. It's still like that in the 21st century. So why don't we put this and you have directly all your temperatures measured? Let's talk a little bit about nanotech. I don't have more time, so we will talk about, you heard about wearables. Now we will have the ingestibles. Ingestibles are sensors that you put it in a pill, here, small, and then they tell you when you took that pill. Because as humans, we don't remember. Or if you are old, the most important thing is when you swallow that pill and what time and what was that pill for. Imagine that you have this, that you ingest this, it's already in the market, and takes, in 10 hours, 144,000 pictures, color images from your body from within. I don't tell you how you recover the camera, but you probably know. And then it replaces colonoscopy. A colonoscopy with all the materials, everything, it's around $3,000. This thing is 300. It's 10 times less. Let's finish with big data. To create this graphic that I really quick show you, it took decades of analyzing and sorting data, but tells you something really, really clear. We have cancer when we are a child, when external causes means accidents, and guess what? The big accidents are when you are 18. Which is, you can have your driver license, or you can have a motorbike. And then we have a lot of cancer when we are 50 to 70. So if you are this here, I just recommend you to quit smoking. It's really a thing. But if you go after 90, it's like my father, we are always looking at his circulatory, because the probability here of getting cancer is really null. Okay? So in just one graphic, it tells you a lot of things. Another thing here, most common death causes. In 1915 and 2000, 100 years later, imagine that infections, everybody, men and women, were dying of infections. After Fleming, this changed, and antibiotics, and now we die of what? Most of cancer and heart condition, if you are a man, but if you are a woman, cancer, cancer, cancer. In one just look, with big data, you can know a lot of things. And the good news is that extreme poverty went to 94% people were living in extreme poverty, and now only in the world it's 10%. But in the last 18 years, we were to 30 to 10. So these are good news. There are a lot of trouble, we have a lot of problems, but as humanity, we have never been like that, and we are increasing. These are good news. It's like the life expectancy. I told you these 200 years, 1800 to 1950. Imagine, for instance, Spain went from a life expectancy of only 28 years, in 200 years, to be the second best country to live with 84 years at birth of life expectancy. And India went for 25 to 65, which is a lot. Spain multiplied by 3, India multiplied by 2. And these are the cumulative share of the world population, okay? So it's really good to see these things, how, as humans, we are improving. So let me show you a little glimpse of the future. This is a very difficult task, because predicting the past is always easier. So if I tell you how an electric car will be, you can imagine an electric car like that, right? 4 AA here, but probably it won't be like that. Or I could start talking about, imagine this holographic phone that you could put this plug in, then you put these 4 cameras, blah, 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 and then you have an holographic thing. And you said, wow, maybe yes, maybe not. No, I don't want to do that. Be aware from experts, as they tend to fail predicting disruption. I'm not an expert. I'm just an observer. They predict well innovation, but they don't predict disruption. So I'm going to talk about applied artificial intelligence and electric vehicles. Only these 2 topics. When we talk about artificial intelligence, the thing is, for us, it looks like magic. But applied intelligence has only 3 main things. It's algorithms, that's the same from 1950s and 60s, big data, and computing power. And Google didn't invent the self-driving cars, as you probably know. Was this guy, is an engineer. But this was invented by Google. This is how the car sees the world. And really, it's a different experience. When you enter this, it's a small thing. It's very comfortable. But there is no wheel drive. There is no red panic button. Just there. You put point A, point B, and you go with Google Maps, and then it brings you there. Could you repeat with me? My son, it also applies to grandsons and nephews. My son won't be a driver, won't be a lawyer, won't be a store cashier, of course, and won't be a packet messenger. Why? This is Sunnyvale last summer. This is what's called a pizza delivery. They deliver pizzas like this with a robot already. This is Scania. Scania has 250,000 trucks already on the field, networked, and these trucks, they don't have a driver anymore. And I can tell you that this distance is exactly the distance they need to have if they have an accident. They don't have driver anymore. This is today, but imagine the future. Is this magic? No, it's pattern recognition, and it's massive parallel calculus. And I'm going to tell you a sentence that I would like you to remember, is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Imagine the best machine learning algorithms in image recognition. In the last few years, we introduced the big scale neural networks with 6,500 neurons, and this is the error, the human errors. When we distinguish images, we have 5 to 15% errors. You remember when you are looking for or you are waiting for a friend, and many people come over and say, oh, my friend. Oh, no, it's not my friend. Oh, my friend. You have many errors, okay? So now, with the computers, with 5 million neurons, we are in the lower part of this human error. This is a very practical thing. At home, we have 2 million faces tagged at home, okay? 2 million people. We have many repetitions. We have 3 million pictures, so we have 2 million faces. And it passed 80 years. This is concretely, in 1928, this is my father. 2008, this is my daughter. From these 2 million faces, my artificial intelligence at home can can fail and say things that it's the same person. It's not. Well, this is genetics. They look alike, granddaughter and grandfather. 80 years. I would never be able to do that. But I'm very able to say, oh, this is not my daughter. This is not. I'm very quick to do that. So this is how it works. We can detect colorectal cancer right now with less than a second, with an accuracy of 94%, after training with only 30,000 images. We are able to detect cancer better than 21st dermatologists, but this time 130,000 images were needed. No, they won't disappear. I'm just ending. Dermatologists will not disappear. Dermatologists who don't use artificial intelligence will disappear, but not dermatologists, okay? If you look at this, here is the cancer. Can you see that? And if you train this artificial intelligence, can go fast. This is the world's biggest supercomputers. There are always a list of 500. Focus in the red line. Let's make it easier. Here, teraflops is floating point operations per second. And as I told you, we are living in this exponential era. This is an exponential, semi-logarithmic graph. And I'm going to make you a reflection here. Take your cell phone. Imagine that it's an iPhone 6 that was built in 2014. It was 115 gigaflops, floating point operations per second. So our cell phone, built in 2014, if we go there, here, exactly, is 1994, 20 years. 20 years for what? For having the biggest computer in the world, the supercomputer, in your pocket. In 20 years, okay? And what will happen if we grow like that? Don't worry. As you have a human brain, which is 38,000 teracalculus per second. The best supercomputer we have right now is in China, and it's only 0.002% of your brain. But it doubles every year. And it's a long deception, yes, but there is one day when we call it, the computer will emulate your brain, and then different things will happen. Let me finish with electric vehicles, are really simple, and Tesla didn't invent the electric car, no. Toyota has been with hybrid, they sold 10 million units already in 20 years, but Tesla did this nice car and the longest range vehicle, which work much better here in Seville with warm zones. They have a range of 600, almost 700 kilometers. And if you put in the northern countries, it's only 100 kilometers less of range. So it's for warm zones, it's good. Barcelona, for instance, has already electric vehicle car, and you can have free parking and free recharging. And it has only 18 mobile parts. Compare this to a normal car with 2,000 or more pieces. If you think that we will not be able to change and to move to electric cars, let me show you this picture from New York. This was Fifth Avenue, Sunday, Easter. Can you see the unique car here? And all horses? 1900. Let me show you this. 1913. 13 years later. Can you tell me where is the unique horse? It's here. Fifth Avenue, New York. 13 years where things didn't change at the time. Now we change much more. So in 13 years, they disrupted. But now, this time, it's going to be more difficult because 7 of the 10 biggest companies are oil companies and car companies. So wrapping up, what happened when we disguised everything? A typewriter, a cell phone, a camera as computer, they disappear. Now it's the time to disguise a computer as a car. And linear predictions will not apply. Be prepared, be advised. And one last thing. I know that Mr. Antoni Pont likes to collect nice quote, so I devote that to him. It tells the intelligent man knows everything. The wise man knows everybody. It's important. It's really important because connections matter and matter a lot. Could you tell me what these two objects have in common? Carbon. And depending how you network them, you have graphite or you have diamond, which is hard and clear. So those properties don't reside in the carbon atoms. They arise because the interconnections between them. So similarly, the pattern of connections among people confers upon groups of people different properties. That's why it's so important that you are here, because our experience of the world depends on the structure of the networks in which we are residing. And you have a network here, and it's really important that you network a lot because the future will change a lot, but the network among people and among interesting people, as I call them IP, it's the most important thing. And be generous. Have your friends be introduced to our friends and to interesting people because they will turn you to back. Don't try to be like in the past because the future is going to be really different. And try to analyze your network density. That means people with me, for instance, that have common links with me. You have the tools to do it. And you can analyze who is centralized in your network. And of course, you have these tools that can tell you how to do it and just tell you that we are the primitives of an unknown civilization. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vea. We